Welcome back to ReadingBear. Today, we will take a look at some new ProRevenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
Welcome to r/ProRevenge. The first one is titled, Your Performance Doesn't Mean You Get Unlimited Get Out of Jail Free Cards. Another story from the car world. In my many years of being in this business, I've met very few natural salespeople. I am not one of them. I got to where I am by discipline, thick skin, and drive to succeed. I'm not a mind reader, and I stumble over myself from time to time. However, every once in a while I run across a gifted salesperson, and surprisingly they are some of the most difficult, and oftentimes unprofitable salespeople. They know they are good, and therefore they think they have free rein. I work a group of dealers, and over the years we've acquired various dealers. Well, I remember we acquired a new dealership. It was a Chevy dealership. And I remember in my first meeting with the store manager we went over our staff. We were reviewing our sales staff and one guy stood out to me. John, who always seemed to be selling 30+ cars a month, impressed with his numbers. I mentioned this to the store manager, who sighed. I asked, "What's wrong?" He went on to explain John is good, and John knows he is good, and therefore he runs loose with the rules, and causes the MGT a headache. However, the old owner put up with it because he represented such a large portion of the dealer's business. I, however, do not believe your performance gives you a free pass. Sure, if you're a rock star and make a mistake, I'm not going to fire you over it, but that doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. I said that's fine. I'll watch John and his habits. But first I'll have a sit down with John and explain what is expected of him. So later that day I sat down with John, a pleasant enough guy, of course he would be, and I asked him about his behavior. He of course denied that he was a reckless individual, just a top performer. That's fine, so I personally went over with our employee conduct code. Now, for those of you don't know, I have an employee conduct code. It basically is a set of guidelines, rules, and what we expect out of you. It includes things such as, no relationships with customers, no using dealership property for direct personal benefit, treat all customers and employees with respect, no DUIs, no drugs on the premise, leave home at home, be honest both to your dealership and especially to your customers, etc. I then explained to him that I expect my employees to first follow the code of conduct, then worry about business. John of course agrees and signs, all is good. Maybe he won't be a problem. Not even 2 days later I was taking a breather outside the office in the doorway. John was to the left of me but couldn't see me as there was a large pillar blocking his view when I heard a customer approach John. The customer explained that he was here for another salesperson, he had an APPT, and was ready to buy. I then witnessed John blatantly lie to the customers and explain that particular salesperson wasn't available and that he was instructed to take care of the customer. Completely not true. I walked away and found the salesperson. I told him that John was currently selling his customer, but not to worry because I'd transfer the deal to that salesperson and he'd get all the commission and do none of the work. John of course sold the customer. Proud of his accomplishment, I approached John and advised that I witnessed him skate another salesperson. Reminded him that was against dealership policy. He brushed it off and said, "Don't matter, I made bank." I then advised him that he was getting $0 for his work and the salesperson who had the APPT will be receiving 100% of the deal, and this is to serve as a punishment for him. John was furious. It was a nice check, about $850. I reminded John I'm the new king of the hill and I play differently and he needs to adjust. We go home for the day with no further incident. A few days later I'm driving over to the dealership when I see one of our cars without dealer plates sitting in a Red Lobster parking lot. This is completely against company policy. A show car is to not be driven off our lot without dealer plates, and show cars are not to be used for personal gain. I of course turn into the Red Lobster, walk into the restaurant to see which one of my salespeople are using dealership property for personal gain. Sure enough, it's John sitting there enjoying his meal. I approach him, sit down, and the look on his face was priceless. I advise him he is using company property for personal gain and that is against our code of conduct. I then advise him he is suspended from work without pay for the upcoming 4-day weekend. I also advise him I will have the car towed back to the dealership and he can figure out how he's going get home. He protests. Says I can't reasonably expect him to walk home in this heat, it was the summer, and that he is very sorry. Nope, not having it. I leave him be, have the car towed back to the dealership. His suspension was enforced and he didn't work that holiday weekend. It cost him a bundle too. He also got to enjoy the long walk back to the dealership in the summer heat. Come that Tuesday I sat down with him and explained to him that he is on his second strike and another incident and he's out of here. He didn't seem to take my threat seriously. I advised him that even though he sells 30 cars a month, I can easily hire 3 people to do his work and the dealership will still live on. A week goes by without incident, and then on a Monday morning I get a call from the store manager saying we need to have a talk about John. So I drive over to the dealership and sit down with the store manager. He says I need to go visit John, so I do. John looks like complete crap. He has a black eye, a bruised face, and walks with a limp. Concerned, I asked what happened. He says he got into a shuffle with a family member over a personal argument. Feel bad for the guy, but he won't get into any detail. I advise him to do his best to look his best and let me know if he needs to go home early. I leave and I'm by the front desk when I see a very angry man who just a few weeks ago bought a car from us enter our dealership. Let's call him Jason. He asks to speak to a manager. I quickly get involved. This isn't normal. This guy is steaming and something is seriously wrong. I'm deeply concerned that maybe a safety issue caused an accident or something like that. All I know is something is seriously wrong. I pull the guy into the back office. He is fuming, he is angry, and he is upset. I calm him down, advise him I'm here to help him through his issue and that I would love to help him. He then finally explains what happened. A few weeks prior, his wife and his worked with John, name keeps popping up again, and bought a car. I wonder, did John lie, or what's up? He continues on and explains that last night he came home from a 12-hour shift to find John in his bed with his wife, let's call her Cindy. He is fuming, angry, is upset that we would hire such a person, and then I inquire, is this the reason why John looks like he got the crap beat out of him? He admits that he did beat up John and he feels that we should know what John is up to. I thank him for his time, advise him I will handle this swiftly. I explain to him not only will I deal with the salesperson in question, I gave him some extras on his car for free, actually quite a bit. I also advised him that this behavior is unacceptable. I pull John's phone log. All of our salespeople are provided with cell phones for work. Those phones automatically upload their call log to our system. Sure enough, there is quite a bit of texting, calling going on between John and Cindy. Starting after the sale of the car, and into the evening. This is not normal. Your car sales professional shouldn't be calling, texting your wife at midnight. So I page John into the office and I ask him if he knows Cindy. He denies it. I show him the call log. He admits that he does indeed know a Cindy. I then ask him if he knows a Jason. He admits that he knows a Jason. Then I ask him, did Jason beat the shit out of you cause you were ducking his wife Cindy? His head is down, he knows the game is over, he looks up and says it is. I then fire him. The look on his face was priceless. He protested. He said, you can't afford to fire me, I'm the top salesperson, I outperform everyone by at least a 2-to-1 margin. To which I responded, I can't afford to keep you on the payroll, I can't afford having my salespeople skate others, show disrespect, use company property for personal gain, and duck my customers' wives. I can't afford that and therefore you're done. That day John left for good. Know what the funny thing is? We saw an upshot in business overnight, our other salespeople morale improved, and every picked up John's slack and we sold more cars than ever. Since John left we've never had a month worse than when John was working for us. The next one is titled, Putting Your Car's Flashes On Entitles You to Block All Traffic. I don't think so. So driving down my parents' back lane to pick up my 2 daughters, 20 feet from my parents' driveway a truck is sitting with its flashes on, sitting in the middle of the back lane, blocking the whole road. I sit for a bit waiting for her to move and the lady yells at me, I have my flashes on, I'm going to be 10 minutes, go around the block. I would have had to pull a U-turn in a back lane, drive 500 feet, take 2 left turns, drive 600 feet, 2 more left turn 100 more feet to get into the parking spot that was now 20 feet away from me. The 2 ladies in the truck were unloading groceries from the back of the truck at a very cumbersome pace. So I respond, can you pull ahead 20 feet or pull into the empty driveway? Yes, they had a spot they could have pulled into, to let me pass. To which she responds, no, my flashes are on, I have 10 minutes to unload. So I was having none of this nonsense, so I turn my car off, put my flashes on, go to my parents, get my mum's keys, reverse her car into the back lane, and put her flashes on. I now have my vehicle and my mum's vehicle blocking them in. They are finishing their unloading of groceries and start to go off on me saying they will call a tow truck and so on, and several other verbal abuses, to which I respond, my flashes are on, I'll only be 10 minutes. I moved the car 5 minutes later. The people in question were not amused. The next one is titled, Car Accident with Me in the Cab and You Want to Charge Me for the Trip? Kiss a big customer goodbye. I was on a business trip to a client in Philly, located just far enough away from the city to be a very expensive cab ride, but not so far as to warrant a rental car. I flew down, got an airport cab there, was there for a week being picked up and delivered from my hotel by taxi, and on Friday the client called a cab for me to return to the airport. The driver of my cab was distracted and not driving with safe attention to the road, so after a couple miles he hit another car. Fortunately it was a low-speed collision, just barely not fast enough to deploy airbags, and everyone walked away unharmed. However, I had to wait for the cops to show up to give a statement, and I insisted the cab company send another car with another driver to take me to the airport. A couple minutes into waiting I realized the driver had left the meter running, which I insisted he stop. All told I was there maybe an hour between waiting for the cop, talking to the cop, convincing the cop not to force me to go to the hospital. I had a black eye before the accident and the cop was really worried that I was terribly injured and too delusional to realize I had been hurt. Waiting for a new cab to show up. So, while I'd left early for my flight, by the time I got to the airport I was going to have to rush to make it. You'd think if you had a cab company and your driver had a car accident with a passenger in the car, you'd see to it that they got to their destination safely and hope they don't sue you. But not only did the second cabbie run the meter and ask me to pay, but he told me the owner of the cab company had insisted he get the fare from the first cab's meter and insist I pay it too. He had the decency to look ashamed about all this, so I wasn't too nasty to him personally. I told him calmly that I recognized that the law allowed that I could be charged for the trip. Although good business practice would dictate otherwise, but that if I hadn't been charged I would have given him a good tip, while now he'd get no tip as I was offended. And then I told him what to tell his boss I was going to do. You see, my client there was a major bank. It wasn't Bank of America, but a few years later it got bought by Bank of America, so you can think of it as being that size. And they had people in to consult with them and work with them often, and they always used this cab company for all the local travel. I would be going back there in 2 weeks, so I simply phoned up my client on Monday morning to let them know about the accident and asked them very nicely to please find another cab company for me to use when I would be there. My contact at the client was, of course, horrified, and made sure that they, their employees, and their consultants and contractors would never be using that cab company again. The next one is titled, Lowball Me on the Value of My Car. You'll hear from me on the hour, every hour. On November 17, 2010, I was involved in a major vehicle accident, 18-year-old kid's fault. I was in the hospital for 6 days and was on disability home rest for 3 months for recovery, back issues, fused spine. When I was coherent enough to deal with business, I started talks with his insurance company. From the very start, they lowballed me on price from just about everything. $600 value for a $3,500 car. Kelly Blue Book valued it at $3,690, and I had a brand new paint job on it from 3 months prior, their value, $32, and 4 brand new tires not even 2 months old, valued, $5 a tire. They browbeat me into thinking that this was how the process worked. Nearly convinced me to settle. This insurance company wanted to cut me a check for $700 bucks and some change within 5 minutes of talking to me. The negotiations started horribly and I couldn't get him to budge for nearly a week. I talked to my lawyer and he couldn't help but gave me great advice. I got additional advice from my own insurance agent on how to deal with them and basically asked professionals on how to approach this. It turns out, this insurance company the kid used was the shadiest last resort of the last resort kind. My lawyer, who dealt with the medical bills, not car issues, told me, with the record this kid had, he was paying close to $1,600 every 6 months. He was uninsurable by all standards, but it was his insurance company that was the worst of the worst. They were playing the waiting, scare tactics game with me. What they hadn't planned on was a guy with nothing but time on his hands, and my jimmies had definitely been rustled. I inquired on every single item in and on my car. I located receipts, got estimates on everything I had and bombarded them with faxes and paperwork. At every opportunity, I begged and pleaded with the companies I dealt with in estimates to overinflate the price of the cost. $700 repair for a leather jacket, $2,300 for a Dell i3 laptop, $160 for designer jeans, probably Kirkland's signature if I recall. This insurance company only budged a bit on the fair market value price, so they started playing a new game with me. Not taking my calls or not responding to my emails. When my claims adjuster agent did call back, my phone would ring once. As in 5 seconds, and he would hang up, so it looks like they made an attempt to call. I would immediately return the call but would get, "Your claims adjuster just stepped out of the office," or "He's headed into a meeting," from the operator receptionist. Nearly 3 weeks of these phone tag and email aversions games led me to create a detailed itinerary of my agent's whereabouts and excuses of why he couldn't take my calls. I then upped my game. I called his bosses, talked to other agents and told my story to all of them. When that got nowhere, I upped my game even more. I called every hour, on the hour, for 8 business days in a row. I was on a first-name basis with 4 of his co-workers, knew his supervisor's name and boss's name and had all of their extensions and email addresses on speed dial. I was even CCing all of them on every email I sent, so my agent had zero excuses that he didn't get my calls. Shortly after, a settlement offer was sent via email, as he refused to talk to me at all over the phone, in the amounts of $1,800 for my vehicle and $1,200 for my personal items. I wanted $3,500 and $1,750 and wasn't going to settle for less. He chose to make this personal and not business, so I did the only logical thing. I made it business in the worst possible way. I called on a Friday afternoon and left a message on every coworker's phone as well as the supervisor's phone that because my agent refuses to negotiate properly nor return my calls, that I would now be calling all of them every hour, on the hour, as well as the supervisor and boss. Leaving detailed messages to call me back and offer me what my vehicle and personal items were worth. I stated I would be starting this on Monday morning, 8 a.m. sharp. Needless to say, by Tuesday afternoon, I had a settlement offer of $3,200 for my vehicle and $1,730 for my personal effects. Dollar figures that were very fair and almost generous in the industry, but I replied back with the following. See, what bothers me is that I would have settled for less than this amount far earlier in the negotiations. But after all this time and effort, I will not settle for anything less than $3,530 for my vehicle and $1,810 for my personal effects. I will start calling again tomorrow morning until these terms are met. Within 2 hours of leaving that message, I had a new email with the settlement offer of $3,530 for my vehicle and $1,810 for personal effects. I accepted, much to their delight. The last one is titled, "You Don't Want to Pay for Repair, I Guess I'll See You in Court." This is the story of my first auto accident. For context, I have always loved classic cars. My first car was a 1979 Dodge Magnum GT, but it died on me and I couldn't get it to work again. I sold it for scrap in late October 2017, and I saved every penny I could to get another classic car. I went without eating during my lunches at work. I was dedicated to getting a classic car. I was in 11th grade at the time, so I could only work 24 hours a week at $9.50 an hour, so by the time I had $3,000 saved up I was ready to find a car. I found a 1974 Pontiac Catalina in late March 2018. It was a Pontiac 400 cubic inch V8, restricted, removing emission control systems. It's legal in Michigan, given performance parts like an Edelbrock carburetor, and was paraded around as a show car across the state. I was in love, everything from the maroon paint and white vinyl roof to the aftermarket police hubcaps. I bought it and it was my crowning achievement so far in life. Fast forward a few months. I had been driving the Catalina daily every day since I bought it, and I was planning on going on a road trip around Lake Michigan later in the summer. It was the last summer break of high school and I wanted to celebrate by doing this grand road trip. It was the day before my 18th birthday. It was a nice day to go cruising around in a 70s land yacht. I pull up to an intersection close to my house on. I was driving and both of my parents were in the car. We stop at the intersection at a green light because an early 2000s F-150 was trying to do an illegal turn. Michigan has a weird road design thing called the Michigan turnaround. This isn't the first time I saw someone do this, so I didn't think twice. I look up and the light turned yellow. I said aloud, "I'm going to wait this light out, I don't want to get out there when the light turns red." And then the entire car lurches forward. I immediately shifted into park and get out. A red 02 or 03 Pontiac Montana, undamaged, had bumped into my Catalina, damaged. We pulled into a Denny's and wait for the police to arrive. I chat with my mum about what I can do. She told me about a mini tort claim. It was the only thing I could do with PLPD insurance. I could only go after the other driver if I had over $1,000 in damages on my car. I went around my hometown and found a single shop that would even attempt to work on my Catalina, and their estimate was $1,675. I couldn't believe it, and he was even knocking $200 off because I knew him. With this I was able to start a mini tort claim. A week goes by and I get a call from an unknown number. I like to duck with the phone scammers who say my warranty is out of date. I answer while I was taking a crap before I needed to go into work, and the call went something like this. Insurance company rep: hello, is this op? Me: yay, why? Insurance company rep: I see you issued a claim about an accident involving a Catalina. Me: yes, I did. Insurance company rep: well, the person who hit you doesn't have that on his policy. Me: what does that mean? Will I get any money from him? Insurance company rep: nope, have a great day. Hangs up. I panicked and was nearly late to work trying to figure out what was going on. I called my insurance company and they told me to sue. I had a cut and dry case and I would get the same amount of money if I sued, so that's what I did. I gathered everything I needed and filed the claim with the small claims court. A month and a half later, court date. This is the first time I could talk to him directly and not through insurance companies. The judge asks me, my parents, P, the other driver, D, and his girlfriend, DG, to step into a small room to see if we can settle the matter privately. His girlfriend starts the conversation at me. I was the only one who sat down for this. DG: you were in the intersection when we hit you, you should have gone through the light. D: and where did you get the $1,675 figure? I hit a tree going 40 when I was your age and it only cost me $800. P: the age of the vehicle is the reason the repair cost is so high. Me: you also made the bumper cut through fiberglass moldings on both sides, you bent the frame and bent the entire bumper up. Not only is it an outdated platform, but I need to get 1974 parts because that's the only body panels that will fit. The age and rarity of the parts is what caused the prices to be higher in this case. DG: well, you shouldn't have been driving a car that old. Me: you shouldn't have assumed that I would have gone through the yellow light. We didn't come to an agreement before the trial. I went into the courtroom expecting a long and heated legal battle. The case didn't even last 5 minutes. The judge said to D: you both saw the truck do the illegal turn, and you both saw the yellow light. D should have slowed due to an obstruction and op stopped because of it. It is law in the state of Michigan to stop at a yellow light if it is safe to do so. The case goes to the plaintiff, me. The court is adjourned. D is still paying me his installment checks to this day. Thanks for listening.